China defeated India in the Indo-China War of 1962. There were many reasons behind it, but the biggest reason was that then Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was a man with zero real political skills, and hence he wasn't prepared for a Chinese assault. He famously coined the term Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, which means Indians and Chinese are brothers. China took no time in sticking a dagger in the supposed brother's heart. Since then, China has been trying really hard to repeat the 1962 story. In the 1967 Sino-India War, India gave them a bloody nose, and the Chinese PLA was forced to retreat. Then China stopped fighting and resorted to incursion tactics. Sometimes, however, PLA little emperors literally tried going the extra mile. Those were the times when they got beaten black and blue. 2017, they tried the trick in Doklam. They were beaten and chased away. 2020, they tried the trick in Galwan. They were beaten and chased away. October 2021, they tried it near Arunachal border and they were beaten senseless, captured and later released into the wild. Hi and welcome. This is TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group, and I'm your host Atul Mishra. In this video, I am here with the story of China's yet another loss at the hands of Indian troops. Let's begin. Chinese President Xi Jinping has exposed the People's Liberation Army soldiers to great personal harm. Over the past year, the Chinese PLA has been facing a spate of casualties at the hands of the Indian Army and the extreme climate of eastern Ladakh, where India and China are locked in a fierce military standoff. At the root of the entire issue is a big miscalculation on China's part regarding the capabilities of the Indian Army. But China simply does not understand that its armed forces have come out as those who are no match for India's brave soldiers. In eastern Ladakh last year, India made it known to China that it was not dealing with the same country which it had trampled in the 1962 war. The India of 2021 was dramatically different from what China used to deal with. Yet China keeps trying its luck with the Indian Army and keeps getting crushed. TFI had earlier reported how China is preparing for a winter war with India. Now it seems our assertion is nearing fruition because China seems to have opened a new frontier against India, this time in Arunachal Pradesh. China claims Arunachal Pradesh as its territory and refers to it as South Tibet. The Indian and Chinese troops engaged in an intense face-off last week in which around 200 PLA soldiers were intercepted close to the line of actual control, or the LSC. However, this misadventure of China ended in a great shame. According to News 18, a few troops from China were temporarily detained by Indian soldiers in Arunachal Pradesh, Tawang, after around 200 of them crossed over into the Indian side from Tibet and attempted to damage unoccupied bunkers. The Arunachal Pradesh incident took place between the border pass of Bumla and Yangtze, close to the line of actual control. Indian troops strongly contested the Chinese soldiers' incursion into Indian territory. It would not be an overstatement to say that by a strong contestation, the highly placed Indian defense sources meant that physical blows of Indian soldiers landed squarely on Chinese cheeks, forcing them to retreat to their side of the border. Sources said the matter was subsequently resolved at the local military commanders level. The Chinese soldiers were released and the situation was diffused. Needless to say, China sending in a 200-strong patrol party into India is no coincidence. India has successfully foiled all Chinese designs in eastern Ladakh, and it is only natural for China to now try and open a new frontier along the Indo-Tibetan border. However, in Arunachal Pradesh, too, India drove away Chinese wimps like a bunch of sheep are driven by a herder. China is trying to up the ante against India across the line of actual control, which is the effective Indo-Tibetan border in the mighty Himalayas. Over 100 PLA soldiers crossed the border at Barahoti in the Indian state of Uttarakhand last month, damaged some infrastructure including a bridge before retreating. China has also constructed modular container-based accommodations for its soldiers in around 8 locations near eastern Ladakh. On its part, however, India is more than ready to deal with the Chinese threat than it has ever been. According to a Times of India report, the Indian Army continues with its strong combat posture along the entire frontier with China, which includes high-volume artillery firepower ranging from the older 105mm field guns, Bofors and rocket systems to the spanking new M777 ultralight howitzers amid no signs of de-escalation in eastern Ladakh. Separately, it has been more than a year since the Indian Army started deploying a large number of tanks in eastern Ladakh along the Indo-Tibetan border. The Indian Army is a professional military service, whereas the Chinese PLA is just a gang of armed men that operates as the armed wing of the Chinese Communist Party. Therefore, while the Indian military establishment made a proper assessment of the threat posed by China, the PLA remained somewhat oblivious to the capabilities of the Indian Army. Since 2018, the PLA's online media has released several videos and articles about India. Strangely, none of them discusses India's military might. They have been concerned only with India's arms purchases from countries like the US. Even during the Ladakh military standoff, the PLA media avoided making an in-depth discussion about India's military might. However, China also simultaneously overestimates the capabilities of its own little soldiers, who we like to call little emperors. Close to 70% of the Chinese military force is comprised of single children with no siblings. Chinese families are very emotional about their children since there is only one. Effectively, millions of children grew up believing they were little emperors. Such kids turned soldiers on their part too have the least interest in dying for the CCP. Therefore, even in the combat field, Chinese soldiers prefer the easier way out, and it usually involves surrendering to the enemy force. Such behavior is directly attributable to the extremely low morale of Chinese troops. The situation with the PLA is so grim that China today trusts lifeless weapons and machines more than it trusts its own soldiers, who, by the way, suffer from excessive masturbation addiction. Chinese soldiers also have a knack for crying and breaking down at the drop of a hat. But then what better can you expect from wimps who are forced MMA and Kung Fu training by the CCP, even when they could be in their beds doing what they do best? China's zealousness to defeat India at least once in a brawl is getting the better of it and is leading to Chinese soldiers returning home with disfigured faces, broken bones, and frozen morale.